Often it happens that we have a better position or sometimes even a winning one, but we give away our advantage by allowing our opponent a lot of counterplay. Sometimes we blunder, sometimes we miss tactics. And one way to solve this is by limiting our opponent's counterplay and realizing where our pieces belong. And I want to show you that with the help of an example. We're going to look at a game of Alexander Alekhine against Laos Astalos, if my pronunciation is correct. And white is Alekhine. He has a great position. If you see, you have a good knight, centralized knight, while black's pieces seem a little bit cramped. We can also notice the queen might seem a bit offside if this king were to come in trouble. So, all in all, we can agree with more space, white should have some edge. But how to actually convert this? One thing we can do is we can realize how does black want to open up his position. One thing is that he could play c5 at some point, and he can try to get his fair share of the center, which is something he lacks right now. Okay, and where should white have his pieces? It does feel like the rooks might enjoy themselves on, let's say, a file like g4 or a square like g4. Maybe the queen wants to be on g4 and get the knight on h5 to attack g7. So we want to limit black's counterplay, and we want to put our pieces closer to black's king because black's queen is offside. How does white start? He plays the good move c5. First things first, you say, well, after c5, the connection towards the king is sort of blocked and you can't play c5 yourself. I have also created a hole to go on b6 should there be a need. And how is this bishop going to come out? You can try bishop e8 f6, but that's going to weaken your king a little bit more. So c5, excellent move. b5 by his opponent. And he's wondering how he can create something, but b5 is definitely not the way. It just leaves c6 weakened. Every pawn move you make will weaken squares and it will gain squares. But here the squares it gain is c4 and a4, and that's not helpful for black. It does stop knight c4, however. So white plays bishop e4, queen c7, you put pressure there, and queen c3. One way white can try to bring his queen to a better square is by f3. The other thing white can try is move this knight somewhere else and play queen g3. Bishop e8, knight e2, rook a6, knight c1. So white is aiming for the b4 square now and putting additional pressure on c6 because he can play around. He can play rook d3, rook g3, he can play rook e3, rook g3. So he's keeping his cards open. For now, he's just looking at good squares he can put his pieces on rather than trying to immediately checkmate the king. Of course, if you win the c6 pawn, it's sufficient to win the game because then the position will collapse with the c5 pawn. Knight d7 by black, and that happens to be a dubious move. Even though it tries to exchange a piece, it is very hard for you to survive only with two bishops when the position is somewhat closed on the queen side. Knight d3, rook d8, knight e5. So it's now the other knight which has sort of rerouted itself to a better square, attacking c6, and black's pieces are still cramped. Now the next step should involve getting something to the g file. Probably with the help of queen g3, maybe you run up this pawn over the board, gain some space, and we shall see. Bishop f8, h4, played immediately. You can gain more space on the king side as well, and then black is completely cramped. You see how well white is restricting his opponent's counterplay? You can play this because there is no way you can attack h4 properly. You can't play queen e7 really because at least I have g3, or I can play queen g3. So rook a8, black doesn't have a plan, and bishop b1. Why the sudden switch from e4 to b1? Well, realize something. If white were to threaten checkmate with queen c2, and if you ever played g6, I would have h5 to tickle your king a little bit, not just a little bit. And yeah, situation could get terrible for you, especially with these bishops. Notice the d pawn isn't really weak because you haven't even doubled your rooks yet, and even when you do, I will have bishop e4 to kick these rooks away. So h5, trying to stop that idea where white would have played there and there. Queen f3. New targets to attack. New targets. You attack c6 and h5 at the same time. g6. g6. And now you should realize white will have more attackers than black will have defenders. I don't know if this bishop will be a defender or not, but this bishop might be one. But the other pieces are just playing there. So you can strike while the iron is hot. Iron is hot or cold? I don't know how the saying goes. But you can strike now because black doesn't have enough defenders. And g4. For an attack to succeed, you need more attackers than defenders. Fundamental theorem of attack. H takes, queen takes, and you're again very happy. I'm still waiting for this rook to come to g3. I don't know, I've spoken it like 10 times now. But I don't know why he hasn't put a rook on g3 yet. I would have. Okay. Bishop g7. Bishop a2. a2? Wasn't this bishop supposed to be good on this diagonal? Hold on, there might be some threats here lurking in the air. You know, all these sacrifices become possible and you control d5, so there is no rook d5. b4, I mean a desperate attempt, just bishop c4, you know, he wanted to play b3, you get away. b takes, queen a5, queen e4, queen c7, queen f4. You sort of move around for a little bit, and then you finally get this breakthrough in with h5, gh5, and what do you do finally? How do you add a rook to the g file with king h1? I've been looking for it for like 15 moves now, and finally it does it. He notices again that, you know, if he can add an additional attacker with these pieces just sitting on the queen side, I mean, how is black going to survive? Come on. Rook b7, rook g1, queen e7, and rook takes. You can sacrifice because you still have more attackers. You don't even need to calculate this. But rook g1 check, king h7, knight takes f7. The last thing to notice is that if you play bishop d3, he has f5. So you just eliminate the pawn. Knight takes f7. And well, actually, black just resigned, you know. You can't support against these pieces coming in. Like something like this, king h8, queen h6. Turns out to be a very beautiful way to win the game. Did you notice how clean this conversion was? Black did not have any counterplay whatsoever to sort of have equivalent chances to get back into the game or even try to win the game. Now, most of you could have blundered somewhere in the game. Alekhine did not. I mean, maybe there is something for you to learn here, no? Do let me know how you liked the video. If you want to see more of this, I can make another video on this. But I'm just testing out content, what you guys like. I don't know. So yeah, do let me know, okay? See you in the next one.